The average American is consuming half the daily recommendation for this nutrient, yet it's something that has been shown to reduce the risk of various diseases and through that, improve longevity. Quick fixes or hacks to improve health are hard to come by, but this is one which does actually make significant difference, which is backed by research, and we're going to dig into that in this episode. Hey, and welcome to Vegetarian Health and Longevity, the podcast where we cover amazing topics that help vegetarians live longer in better health. I'm your host, James LeBague, and I get to interview expert guests and also share my own experiences working as a sports nutritionist and as an advanced clinical practitioner in family medicine. I once worked with a client who came to me for advice on how to improve their diet and their health. They already ticked some of the boxes. They didn't smoke, they didn't drink alcohol, and they were physically active. They ran a couple of times a week and also did some swimming, so by all accounts, were doing well. However, there was one area of their diet which was lacking considerably, and it's the focus of today's episode. My client wasn't consuming much in the way of fibre, and this was a huge area that we could target to make improvements. They gave me various reasons for it, such as a dislike for vegetables and a dislike for whole grain carbohydrates, but this wasn't actually the main reason. After going through it more and, excuse the pun, airing their dirty laundry, we got to the root of the problem, which is actually a significant barrier for many people, and that's how fibre caused them to have lots of gas. Later on in this episode, we'll go through ways to reduce any unpleasant side effects when consuming more fibre, because it definitely can happen. But we should probably start by asking, why the fuss? Why the focus on fibre? And why does it matter that so many people are missing the daily targets for it? The short answer is because fibre helps reduce the risk of high cholesterol. It reduces the risk of colorectal cancer, and it helps to control blood sugar levels. This is in part why fibre is crucial when it comes to the longevity game, because it plays such a big part in reducing the risk of disease. There's still a lot of research going on into the exact mechanisms and role that fibre plays in our health, but it's clear from a variety of different studies that it has a positive impact through the way it changes our absorption of food within the gut, as well as its effect on the gut microbiome. There are two main types of fibre which have slightly different ways of affecting the food that we eat and our health. The first, soluble fibre, is like a thick gel. Imagine you had a full tank of fuel in your car, but instead of being able to use the fuel in controlled amounts, there was no way to do this. It all just came out in one quick burst. Sure, you might get a lot of power for a short amount of time, but ultimately, it's unhelpful. You can think about soluble fibre in a similar way, in helping to slow down the digestion and absorption of food and certain nutrients. The thick, goopy gel-like substance slows down the absorption of nutrients like carbohydrates and fat, and this is why it can help reduce the risk of heart disease, as well as being beneficial for controlling blood sugar levels in non-diabetic and diabetic people. Epidemiological studies demonstrate a negative correlation between fibre intake and the risk of type 2 diabetes, especially with a diet high in whole grains, fruit and vegetables. This means that as fibre intake goes up, the risk of type 2 diabetes goes down, which is a hugely positive finding. The other is insoluble fibre, and it has a slightly different role. Your waste bin is a great way to imagine the impact that insoluble fibre has. If you have a waste bin without a bag in it, it does half a job. You can put rubbish in it, but when you come to empty it, it's probably going to be far harder. You might get bits of rubbish stuck in the bin and have to empty them individually, and you might get lots of horrible ooze coming from the rubbish that's then in your trash bin, and it smells bad. Well, insoluble fibre is like the bag that's in your waste bin. It keeps everything in it neatly, protects the lining of your gut from coming into contact with toxic substances, and helps you to pass it through your bowels to get rid of it as feces. Insoluble fibre helps to prevent constipation and has been linked with reducing the risk of colorectal cancer because of this, as well as problems such as diverticular disease. Fibre is also super beneficial for weight loss, and we'll cover that later on in this episode. So it's safe to say that fibre is incredibly beneficial. But do you remember that stat I mentioned at the start? The average American consumes 15 grams of fibre per day, with the recommendation being at over 30 grams of fibre per day. That's a staggering figure, which clearly demonstrates that there is a real need for most people to increase their fibre. But how do you do it? The easiest way is to eat more fruits, vegetables, and whole grain carbohydrates. Fibre is only found in plant-based foods and not in animal products, which means that those who follow a vegetarian diet are at a great starting point for getting more fibre per day. By the way, if you want help following a vegetarian diet, then you can check out our free vegetarian meal plans at hurrythefoodup.com/try. That's TRY. We do the fibre calculations for you to ensure you're hitting the current recommendations, which we'll go over more in a little bit. Head over to hurrythefoodup.com/try to check them out. Following a vegetarian diet is a great way to consume more fibre because you're going to be eating a high proportion of plant-based foods. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't automatically mean you'll be consuming enough fibre. I've worked with plenty of clients who haven't consumed enough fibre, even though they've been eating less meat and more plant-based foods. One of the key components for fibre intake is the consumption of whole grain carbohydrates, but that's not always everyone's cup of tea. Some people avoid carbs entirely, and others dislike the taste of whole grain carbohydrates. The white varieties of carbs, so think white rice, bread, or pasta, have had some of the nutrition stripped from them, and part of this is their fibre content, which means when people eat those, they don't get the fibrous benefits. So one big tip here, and this is something that Dave, one of the Hurry the Food Up founders, loves to talk about, is starting at a 50-50 split. If you've never eaten whole grain carbs before or aren't sure of the taste, start by having an equal split of whole grain to white. Over time, try to increase the amount of whole grains to white and you'll find that you naturally get used to it. This is an awesome tip with kids and younger adults, by the way. Do it slowly and they'll just get used to it and never question it again. The other part is eating a good amount of fruits and vegetables. Think your 5 a day. If you're consuming at least 5 portions of fruits and vegetables a day, as well as whole grain carbohydrates, you should be getting to the fibre benchmark that nutrition guidelines recommend. If you're interested, that's 14 grams of fibre per 1,000 calories. So if you're consuming 2,000 calories per day, you should be having at least 28 grams of fibre. If you're still interested after that, it can be quite eye-opening to analyse your own diet and see where you're at with your fibre intake. It might surprise you. Whilst there are clear benefits in reducing specific diseases, we also know that fibre is incredibly helpful for weight loss. We create weight loss and muscle building vegetarian meal plans, and one of our most common testimonial comments is along the lines of our meals being so filling and how it's reduced their need to snack. In part, this is down to fibre. And this isn't just an anecdotal thing either. There's heaps of evidence to back this up. Remember that insoluble fibre and how it forms that gloopy, gel-like substance that slows down the absorption of carbohydrates and fat? Well, it turns out that also makes someone feel more satisfied after eating. Because fibre slows down the digestion of nutrients and provides a more steady absorption of glucose, it helps people to feel more content with their meal and increases the sensation of fullness. This, in turn, is brilliant for weight loss because it can prevent cravings from derailing someone's effort and allows them to stick consistently to their diet. There are plenty of studies that show that high fibre diets are beneficial for weight loss, and it's one of the reasons we are so keen to include a good amount of fibre in our weight loss meal plans. If you're interested in those, you can download a free vegetarian weight loss meal plan at hurrythefoodup.com/try. That's TRY. This lack of fibre is also a key reason why sugary sweet foods are often not filling. Take your classic chocolate bar or chewy gummy sweet. There will be little to no fibre in it at all, which makes it ultimately unsatisfying from a fullness point of view. If you're after a low-calorie, high-fibre snack, then try something like low-fat Greek yogurt with berries. This gives a protein punch as well as lots of fibre, which gives a double whammy kick for making you feel satisfied after eating. Now, I touched on this briefly earlier, but my client had a worry about adding in too many vegetables because of the most common side effect, gas. Fibre can't be properly broken down in our stomach, and that's a good thing. It's one of the reasons it's so beneficial. It creates a positive environment for good bacteria, which helps to improve the gut microbiome. But one of the things that happens is that there's gas released. This can be embarrassing and unpleasant, and is a common reason that people limit fruit and vegetable intake or even avoid it completely. It's fair to say that some people just don't get on well with certain fibrous foods, but if you're looking to increase your fibre intake, then my best advice is to take it slow. If you suddenly swap to eating loads of high fibre foods, then you will probably feel very gassy and uncomfortable. However, if you slowly increase your fibre intake, you'll find your body gets used to it and is able to gradually tolerate more and more fibre. You can also keep an eye out for the days when you feel particularly full of wind, because there may be a food that affects you more than others. Typically, legumes, including lentils, beans and peas, are a common culprit, and going easy on your portions of those might be necessary. But again, try to build it up and see how you get on. If you're struggling, it might be worth speaking with your family doctor or a registered dietitian to see if they can provide any help for you. But with my client, we were gradually able to introduce more fruits and veg into their diet until they got to a comfortable level where they consumed way more fibre than they previously were, and now more than the recommended lower limit. It seems such a simple change, but it is so powerful. So I hope today's podcast has helped open your eyes to how amazing fibre can be in your diet and how you might be able to consume more of it. If you did find it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you gave this podcast a 5-star review. It'll only take a moment to do, but will help it spread to more people looking to improve their diet.